It's fantastic to see everyone for this version of On the Offense. I think this is the 9th one we've done, or 10th. So it's, it's becoming an institution. We've been recording them. And so we've got an archive of some pretty interesting discussions along the way. But today, I think, is one both with, Denise Elliott, who almost all of you know, but who's, I always remember most fondly from running all of the marketing director meetings back in the day.
Back in the day when we could meet in person, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And the wealth of kind of knowledge that that group had, I think, was some of the richest educational material. I learned more in those hour-and-a-half breakfast meetings, I think, probably than anything else. But like everyone else, I think you've watched the profession change profoundly. And then in particular, Kiplinger has had amazing transformations. So I think the chance to talk about what you've experienced is going to be wonderful. So I just wanted to start by thanking you, Denise, with your schedule and everything, for being willing to participate and joining us this morning.
No worries. Happy to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, and always a personal joy to see you. So just on that note, as a starting thing, so I think the first question: you've been a leader in the profession so long, someone we've all turned to for so long, and now you've had this weird experience that I think some other people on this call have happened, where you've gone from managing a very large and successful privately owned company to a private equity company. So, as a leader within the community, how are you managing differently, and what has surprised you, and what's changed the most?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Mr. Kiplinger had, his way of doing things and his requirements and his sort of ethos on how he ran the company. So it's been a transition with a lot of that. The ethos of the company we've tried to really maintain strict control over. So we are still the trusted source for personal finance content, period. For business forecasting content, for tax content. We are not shying away from sort of that, who we are fundamentally deep in our core. We are the place to turn to for this, non-biased content. What's changed a lot is sort of the speed at which we're iterating on the business, so private equity owned, you have, just more pressure. So we're iterating faster on products and developing new products. We're also, the one that got me, this is the one that surprised me the most. We shifted from growing expertise in-house to paying expertise and paying for expertise. And at first I was kind of, I was bucking that a little bit because it was so ingrained in our culture that if we needed to learn something about digital marketing, we would go learn about digital marketing and then do it ourselves. And with the pace of change that's required under private equity ownership, you don't have time for that. So it is go find the best person who does this, hire them and make this happen, And so that to me was that was a big shift. Very quickly, we invested a bunch of money with a company that helped us on pricing and helped us on placement and helped us on, all of the, where does the Kiplinger brand fit in the ecosystem of other personal finance titles and investing titles and things like that. And their work jumped us ahead. Whereas if I had done this pricing study myself and done all this work myself, we'd still be working on it, right? They got us from here to there so much faster. It cost a bunch of money. I'm not, that's no joke, but that the value of that time, you can see how it accelerated where we are now.
Do you find that change? Because, I can think of the financial statement impact of those sort of decisions where you're suddenly paying for what I assume are relatively high-priced expertise.
Definitely.
But you are getting good results very quickly. I mean, every time I've done that, I've always been surprised at how good the results were.
Yeah.
But do you, so are you under like, quarterly financial pressure in any way, or have the KPIs changed, or how do people talk about those investments in house?
Yeah, so it's interesting because those are sort of seen as exceptional, right? You make your case for this is something we need to be working on. This is something really important to the future of the company. And so from a P&L perspective, they can be seen as exceptional. They can be seen as, okay, this is not part of the day-to-day operations of the business. And we understand this is an investment that's going to pay off, but then you have to show them that it paid off, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I've been, taking these buckets of investment that we've been doing and then looking backward on them and saying, okay, if we hadn't done that, we would be here, there, and there. But now you can
wow,
see we're there, there, and there. So it's really,
wow,
so yeah, so it's more of, and actually the push for doing this investment has come from the owners, from the private equity owners. Like I said, we're very much in the we'll figure it out how to do it ourselves. And they're like, no, no, we have people that know how to do this. We have experts. Just pay them and
yeah,
get on with it. So I think that's it was a more uncomfortable push for me than it was for I think
yeah.
them. They were
Uh,
happy to spend the money because they've seen it work in other businesses they own.
yeah, that's a huge change,
Yeah.
I imagine, psychologically for
Yeah.
you after,
But I have to tell you, I love it now. And now I'm like, yeah, let's go find some expert on this other thing I want to do. So I don't have to figure it out,
yeah,
internally. So once I got used to it, now
yeah.
I'm in. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we all, I mean, I hadn't heard your phrasing before, but you're sort of doing, if not for, then kind
Right.
of cost justification. I think I heard you
That's
say,
right. That's right.
which probably all of us, even if we don't have access to somebody else's checking account, could think through that, because so often there are, let's say smaller business ideas that you want to go for, but particularly with COVID going on, you're conservative,
Right.
so it's really hard even to justify in your own mind. That's
Right.
that's really interesting. Has it? So it sounds like it's changed your leadership style. After, because one of the disadvantages of a long history is you think you get pretty good at things, and then suddenly you have to change. So, what personally has that
Yeah, I've
impacted?
sort of welcomed relinquishing some of this. So it's
Nice, nice.
the expertise on let's talk about the pricing expertise that we went through, the work that we went through. We did in our Kiplinger's history a ton of price testing. So I'm like, I know what our people will pay and what they won't pay and how it's going to work. And then someone proves it out to you, and shows you how your people are thinking because they've done the surveys, because they have the expertise on pricing, et cetera. And then you kind of flinch a little because it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, but you have to roll with you just paid them for their expertise, so you can't ignore it. So you roll out their pricing, and they're proven right. And so I have quickly sort of relinquished myself to, okay, you're the expert, let's do it, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
It's a strange it was a slightly strange transition for me, but now I'm
yeah,
happy to kind of let it go. So it was a bit of stop second guessing, Denise, and just, you know, take the expert's advice for it and let it rip.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Hmm.
Can I ask the gender question on that one? Is letting go like that harder, being one of the senior women in the profession? I'm just curious.
I'm
Or do
not
you think,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure it would. I think it's me personally. I don't think it has much to do with my gender as much as
yeah,
I'm a bit of a control freak, which the Kiplinger folks who are on this call will tell you. Um, they know who I am. I want to know what's up under everybody's business and the whole bit. I want to make sure I have my finger in it to some extent, but I can't afford to do it. I
yeah,
can't afford to, I
yeah,
can't afford, I don't have the time to be up under it.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Wow.
yep.
Is
So
it
there's a
just
couple,
continue the list? Or you mentioned pricing, which, given the nuances of your old pricing model, that, I mean, that's probably a session unto itself. I'd love to hear about that. You mentioned brand review too. What were some of the other areas that you, as a PE funded firm, you decided to jump into? Just
yeah, the martech world, we had a BlueConic as our CDP,
Yeah.
and we were building our audiences and doing that. And then with the acquisition came a plethora of new martech, things that we wouldn't have had the time to implement, the expertise to implement, again, because we were doing it ourselves, not hiring people to do this for us, right? So we would not have done sort of this big elaborate martech stack that we have now. So
Yeah.
that's been a big interesting sort of change for us as well. Not only do you get the stack, but you also get the experts who are working across all the brands that Dennis owns. So that's been a sort of a leap forward as well. That's something that we
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have,
Yeah.
been able to really capitalize on in the time
Yeah.
frame.
It's an interesting theme because both Helen and Wayne, who are on the Zoom call, who we've done on the offenses with, both have talked about trying to get the balance right between outsourcing. Helen made some great points about it last month. So and it's more than outsourcing. It's trying to capture market leading expertise. I mean, outsourcing sort of diminishes what you're trying to do here, I think.
Yeah, they have to be partners with you in this, and
Yeah.
you actually have to have somebody on your staff to fully manage them. You can't just
Yeah.
sort of say you're the expert, I'm going to, defer to you. You have to have somebody on them making
Yeah.
sure that you're getting from the experts what you want, and that, if there's KPIs that have to be delivered back to the senior team, that they are delivering the KPIs, they're being measured against them, they're being, held to
Yeah.
them. If they're not performing, light them up and keep going.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Could we switch maybe a little to, and there are 15 things in what you said already that I'd love to talk about. Maybe we'll get back to them
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
open
And there are
up.
some questions I guess we can get
Yeah.
back. We can do
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We'll, and I promise everyone, we'll get through the intro part and, quickly, and then open it up to the questions that are already there. But you'd have to ask, you've been involved for so now with, I mean, depending on the day and who's still alive and who's still around, Kiplinger is either the longest or one of the longest standing brands in the business. Um, Cabot's been out there too, and so I won't. We could have a race to the finish on that one or whatever. But you've got this incredibly well established and kind of clearly identified brand
yeah,
that you described at the very top of this call. And of course, you come back in with a wide range of you come into it with a wide range of skills, but a natural marketing capability. So your brand sensitivity is probably more alert than many of us. Now you've got this funding. What are you doing to keep the customer relation fresh and energized and moving into the new century, as it were?
yeah. It's interesting because you know, Kiplinger being 100-year-old company, so we're a 100-year-old company. Our oldest publication is 98 years old, so we've been around for 98 years publishing, 100 years total. So, it sort of sounds like your father's Oldsmobile, right? It doesn't feel fresh. It doesn't feel, we're not our name isn't something made up from, some a fintech kind of name or anything like that. So, it's interesting because the brand value is really strong and our readers love us, but what we're doing, and we're doubling down on this, which is talking to our customers. So we constantly talk to our customers. And
Yep.
I think we anticipate by talking to our customers, we can anticipate their needs. So we had a really strong um, sort of end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And a lot of that was based on our editors talking to our readers, not only paid readers, but audience members, that come over on the website, talking to them, anticipating that, okay, this stimulus thing is confusing everybody. And when they're going to get a check, if you're going to get a check, what does a child tax credit mean? What might be happening with your taxes? The whole election season and the beginning of this calendar year were really difficult for most Americans, personal finance wise. They were trying to navigate, what can I count on? Is my unemployment bump going away? All of that.
Yeah.
And by our editors talking to not only our paid readers, but also audience members on the website, we anticipated, okay, they need help. This is really confusing. We beat all the big financial publishers out there with our stimulus calculator. We had 21 million unique visitors. I think it was in February. I mean, and of course
That's
that translates to, you
yeah.
know, of several, there's going to be a percentage that buy something, and then there's going to be a whole lot of advertising revenue that comes from it. So
Wow.
we've had an amazing, sort of an amazing month, but it's centered around the customer. It's not centered around um, our advertisers. We said we have to have the right content in front of the right people, anticipating their needs. That's going to keep our relationship with our customers. And if we have a great relationship with our customers, then the advertisers are going to
Yeah.
stay,
Yeah.
you know.
And is that despite, so you're not seeing any pressure around, editorial as a cost center and media as a revenue center? You're not,
Yeah. I mean,
because that's obviously not your tradition, but you could
right.
see an evolution into
We
that. Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
coming from, for those of you who never saw the Kiplinger building back that we were in when the
Yeah.
Kiplingers built the building, in granite across the door, it said the editor's building. So it was not the marketer's building. It was not the customer service building. It was not
Yeah.
it was the editor's building. And the whole company ran that way. And until I was hired, there was no marketing person on the at the board level. Everybody reported, the marketing people reported up through editorial. Everything was, editorial first.
Yeah.
So there has been, I would say, I think the editors have gotten used to that change, that the circulation and marketing people and the advertising people have at least an equal share at the table. We never had an equal share at the table before. So now there's an equal share at the table between advertising, circulation marketing, and editorial. So that's been a fascinating sort of shift for people to go on.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting psychological shift, but also it's allowed good relationships. So it used to be, purposefully the ad people weren't allowed to really have good conversations with the editorial folks about something that wasn't, they were not controversial topics. They just really weren't supposed to even talk to each other. So that's all gone away. That's all been broken down. Everyone's cooperating. We do editorial features that we know are going to be really excellent for our readers, but that also have a good commercial side to it for the
Yeah.
advertisers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, there's been a bit of that too,
Yeah.
but we haven't seen a lot of pressure about editorial costs. Everybody has to keep their editorial costs under control, but they're not. We're not getting hit hard with requirements that they be X percentage or whatever, because our content is so. It has to be right. It has to be
Yeah.
checked. It's not. It's not what you can buy at Aldi tomorrow on sale. It's really.
No.
It has to be
No.
correct. So.
As my business partner in my first company used to say, it has to be right and it absolutely can't be wrong, because
Right.
if you're
Exactly.
wrong once, you're dead.
You're dead. Right.
Like,
That's it.
so you just gave me the great image of your current office. You're gonna, when you return someday, you'll discover it says the editorial building, but then it has like
Crossed out.
spray paint, with a carrot that says and martech.
And right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Mm,
hard to get all that on a granite
on a
scroll.
slab of granite.
I
Right.
recommend spray paint for that one. So it's, I mean, it's comforting to hear you say that that when all gets back to it, the editorial is like still the key to refreshing the brand and attracting
Absolutely.
readers.
Without them, yeah, without the right editorial, you're nowhere. I wouldn't have
Yeah,
anything to sell. So there's
yeah.
no, right.
Yeah, but you did mention a calculator, which is, let's say that's a content marketing play that's drag. I think you said 21 million.
21 million
people.
uniques. Yeah.
I felt like we should stop the call and everyone should just like clap like that for your success.
Hey, we were
Yeah,
thrilled too,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
it was our editors anticipating this need that made that so successful. So other people followed us. The Wall Street
Yeah.
Journal didn't have one up when we did. CNBC
Yeah.
didn't have one up when we did. So we were the first ones that had it up and running. We
Yeah.
were able to capture, the best placements on search. And yeah, we needed to have the right SEO language around that calculator and all of that. But without that calculator being there at the right time and working for people and answering the question, not
Yeah.
making it too elaborate,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have had the good success. So
Yeah.
it was all our editors' expertise that drove that.
Yeah. Well, maybe that leads to a final question for me, and then we'll open it up because there's so many good questions already popping up. But because you sort of hinted at some of the transformations, I know there are many more having to do with the pandemic, and I'm sure the PE acquisition situation. There are many more, but as we're at this point where people are returning to theater and weddings and what we were talking about at the beginning of the call before everyone signed in, what like you're on a new trajectory. What's keeping you awake at night, and where do you think 24 months out, 36 months out, where are you trying to get the brand to
Yeah.
after this period of rapid change? What are your fears?
Yeah.
What are your hopes?
If I could sort of wake up 2 years from now, I would hope that our audience would be broader. So, Kiplinger has been the domain of wealthy white guys, to be, pretty
Yeah.
blunt about it. Not that many women subscribe, not that many, people of color subscribe. So we really do need to diversify our audience, if, you know, not even for social reasons, which I think are very important. I think it's really important our type of content gets in front of everybody, but it's just smart business too, right? So if you look at the shift of demographics in the country, you want to make sure that we're getting out to everybody that can really benefit from our content. We have a strong education bent. We want everybody to benefit from it, but it's also the right thing to do for the business as well. So we need more women involved in their money. There are more women now who are delaying having children or not having children. The New York Times had a really fascinating article on that, how it's like the lowest birth rates going on in the country for 20-year-olds. They haven't, 20-year-old women aren't having children anymore. They're saying, my career is important to me. This isn't a job. I'm going to create a career. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, whatever they're going to do. Those women need the type of financial advice and information we provide. And right now we have not as many women. We have a very small sliver of women who actually visit our website and read and subscribe to our content. So in 2 years from now, I hope I have a 50-50 split of men and women. I hope I
Yeah.
have, more people of color, of representational, at least portion of, people of color on, who are reading our content and looking at our materials. Because I think it has to be the right thing to do, from an educational
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really sort of my hope for the brand. In,
Yeah.
if I could wake up in 2 years, hopefully we've solved a bunch of, at least some of that.
Yeah.
I've made big progress on that, would be my goal.
Do you think on those goals for you with the traditionally white male brand, I hope
Yeah.
I'm not simplifying what you just said, but just as a shorthand, do you think new product development is the place to start there, or is it a
It's
brand shift, or is it
it's
where
so
do you start?
interesting. It's
Yeah.
so interesting because I looked at our staffing. We have twice as many women working at the company as men.
Yeah.
So if you know it's 2/3 women working at the company. So clearly it isn't I don't think anyway, I don't think it's the language we use. I don't think I don't think we're writing in it, because our senior investment editor is a woman. The number 2 investment editor is a woman. The woman in charge of our content, our chief content officer, is a woman. So I do not think this is a language problem. You're talking down to women. I don't think any of that's going on. So I might have to take a step back and make sure that's not what's going on, but I don't feel like it. I
Yeah.
think what's going on is women rely probably on each other more, and on, on different ways of becoming informed. I'm not sure they're doing the Googling and really sort of seeking this out separately. I also know that they're not, as from a younger age, they're being dissuaded. I have a nephew that during this whole GameStop thing was losing his mind about GameStop. So for his 18th 19th birthday, I opened a Schwab brokerage account for him. I put some money in it. I took 2/3 of the money and I stuck it in mutual funds, explained to them how it worked. And I said, and you could take the rest of this money and decide to buy GameStop or not, right?
Yeah.
And I made the same offer to two of my nieces and they turned me down. My nephew jumped on it, was on it, bought GameStop when it was $50, sold it at $150 and thought he was a genius. My two nieces refused to participate in the process. And so I'm like, I don't know what they're driving me crazy. So I more work has to be done, right? To get
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get this audience on our interested in what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe the nieces will take Bitcoin. I don't know what they, yeah. I don't know.
Oh
I don't know. Good luck. Yeah.
yeah.
That's such an, yeah, that's such an interesting dynamic about solving problems yourself, which is where
Yeah.
we started the discussion. It's sort of like somehow some of us got trained that way and those
Yeah.
sort of
I
things.
don't know what that
Yeah.
in, I'm not going to be able to fix society, but I can try to fix my little corner
Yeah.
of it. And it's,
Yeah.
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 Well, let's open up. I mean, again, as always is the case, the preferable mode for this session with you, Denise, would be a long dinner somewhere, like spending time on all of these things. But I wonder if since we are talking about like changing the demographics of your audience, maybe I'd lead off with Helen's question that's up there, just because she's talking about the KPIs in the marketing world. So Helen, do you want to jump in with that one? And because it sort of segues into what Denise just said.
Yeah, I guess I'm so sorry I just missed the very beginning of the session, so I didn't hear your full introduction, Denise. But I as a kind of a career marketeer and someone who's built a few marketing teams over the years, what I'm always fascinated by is what companies see as what good looks like in marketing.
Yeah.
So, and it does vary so much.
Mhm.
Various CEOs' perspectives of marketing is so different. Even marketers' perspective of what marketing is looks different.
Mhm.
And it's that I
Yeah.
think it's mainly, if you presenting or having a meeting with or having to please a private equity board, what are the three things, for example, they look for when they say
Yeah.
is the marketing function performing? Because we've done quite a lot of work for private equity owned firms for exactly the reason you just were
Right.
saying. When I joined, I was like, oh, I recognize this, where we were brought on board to accelerate growth.
Right.
And it was almost like they can't, spend money fast enough to get the
Right.
growth they're looking
Right.
for. And then when, there's a whole another story about when the private equity owners change, actually, what happens, interestingly, which I won't go into now, but I think that question is, when I'm thinking about these clients we work with are private equity owned, what are the things they're looking for? And not just for
Yeah.
us, but also for marketing leaders who are internal to these
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, I would say we have three things too. So we have subscription revenue growth, right? Because subscription revenue is much more important than advertising revenue. Advertising revenue is a one-off. Subscription revenue, of course, recurring. So subs revenue growth is very important. The cost of an acquisition is constantly sort of, that is our bar. Everything is measured ruthlessly against that cost per acquisition, every channel, every marketing channel. Um, that's the second one. And then retention rates are also measured ruthlessly. So it is, what is going on? Why aren't your people, I see this base has dropped a little. What was going on in that particular expire base? It's nothing really unique. I would say the CPA cap of, our cost per acquisition cap being measured in a 3-year, we do a 3-year break even, and we are ruthless in list by list if we're doing direct mail and channel by channel and digital keyword term by keyword term. That is probably much more locked down than we ever were before. And not that one's right or one's wrong. It's just how we do it, how they look at it.
Yeah. There's another question about, have you changed, like, has this ruthlessness changed? Does that fit into pricing changes? And also, are you doing more like, churn, monthly billing, first month
Yeah.
free,
So
all of those
so
kind of things?
we had a one really good thing for us happened in right after we were acquired. So we were acquired February of 19, and Money Magazine, which was our only competitor left after, sometime in the 80s, 90s, there was like 15 personal
Yeah.
finance magazines. It
Yeah.
went to 0 in mid 2019. So Money Magazine shut down. We were able to acquire the direct to publisher sold Money subscribers and add them to our magazine file. So that was a really good bump for us. We had a big bump in circulation. Of course, you have all the cost and no earnings, so you just have to count on them wanting to keep the magazine and
Yeah.
converting with you down the road, right? So it's short-term pain for long-term gain. But again, PE guys were happy to give us that, understanding what the future opportunity would be, that we would be capturing all of the personal finance magazine subscribers, period, who purposefully bought the magazine, right? So we
Yeah.
had this big bump in the middle of 2019, which gave us the chance to look at our entire file, do this pricing work. We did actually up our prices. Someone asked, yeah, the prices went up. And they went up because now money wasn't there to drive the price down to the bottom. Our competition was selling 10 issues for like $8, and it was, and you're comparing it to Kip. And if you didn't know us and know how much better our content was, then it was hard to make that claim in direct mail or in email marketing or anything else that were, twice the price, but 20 times better, So by them going away, and working on this pricing work, we were able to really start stepping up our pricing much faster.
Yeah.
And that was helpful. That not only did the pricing research help us with that, but money going away helped us with that.
Yeah. Yeah. What a lift to be able to, build off the bones of some of those failed personal finance magazines.
400,000 subs we picked up from Money. It was sweet. Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it was nice.
I mean, even assume the conversion rate on that, like back in the day, if we got 20%, we thought we were the kings of the, kings and queens of the.
Yeah, they're converting better than that. They love the title, so they love the magazine. So that's really good.
And Denise, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's another case study to look at.
Yes, it was really interesting. And we've been tracking them out. They're sticking with us, and they're stepping up in their pricing. We have people who, these are Money subs who are now, probably brought them for Money really cheap, but they've been with us now for 2+ years. So they're paying $24.95 instead of, $8 or something.
Yeah. And with all due respect to your circulation marketing, the product is so much better than what they had been receiving with Money.
Yeah.
It's kind of a no-brainer if they were willing to stick with Money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Money had switched and taken People magazine content toward the end. They took People magazine content, stuck it on and said, here's the celebrity person and how they manage their money. Well, who cares, right? That's not your audience. My audience isn't celebrities. These are real people that need to know how to refinance their house, not, celebrity money content. So yeah, it was a shame, Ed, that they really let that slide.
Yeah.
It's one of many publications that kind of went in the crapper once they were sold. So
yeah, it was a shame.
Yeah. Kevin, Kevin asked the question about pricing. So thank you for that. And if there's more detail you want, chime in, or we're all, as Ed's pointed out at the top, we're all on Guild together with Renewed. So it's very easy to continue the discussions,
Sure.
So if you want more specific information on that. So,
can I just ask a quick thing?
Yeah, Tammy, you chimed in, so go ahead.
So Denise, you mentioned about like a price bump. So how big a bump? So, like you were mentioning, Money Mag was $8.
Yeah.
You're more, but like, what was your pricing and what was recommended for your increase? Was how big a percentage?
They gave us a couple scenarios. They gave us business as usual. They took business as usual. Then they gave us a moderate, and then they gave us a aggressive. And as we all would have expected, the PE guys were like, do the aggressive. And we stopped claiming rate base in the magazine world. You claim rate base, which kind of forces you to a number. You know, we're going to stick to 600,000 subscribers. And if we drop below that by whatever, you have to give advertisers a rebate. So several other publishers had done this prior to say, we're going to sell an average circ. We're not going to claim a rate base. You're not going to get a refund from us, you know, on the fluctuation. It's going to be on an average. So that also freed up this pricing structure where we could model out what we thought would happen with circ, but when things don't go exactly perfectly, you're not going to be nailed by your advertisers. So on new business, so we decided to go with the aggressive case. And on new business, we doubled our price. And on the highest price, it probably went up by 50%. So we really did. And now granted, these are consumer prices, right? So they're lower to begin with, but we just took everybody up a chunk, and they had modeled out for us what they expected the new acquisition response rates to be and what they expected the renewal rates to be. And we put all that through a circulation model. So we use the Weber circulation model, put that all through the circulation model and ran it out. And we could see that in the out years, even though we had fewer people, they were paying us a lot more money, and it was a big benefit in the out years. So the P, which is what the PE guys want to see, right? They want to be able to say, here's the hockey stick of pricing. You know, our revenue per copy goes from this to this, and that's exactly what they were after. And it's smart. It was a smart move.
Yeah. Does that, Tama, does that answer your question? Yeah. I noticed, John, do you want to jump in with your PE question? And Wayne, I earlier had asked something somewhat similar, I think. So maybe both of you just, because that's obviously a topic of interest, the strategy question.
Yeah, no, it kind of gets to the core of things, I think, which, Denise, you guys are so smart, and you've had some good fortune too. Mm-hmm. And done very well in the last year. And I'm just wondering whether, if the PE guys hadn't plopped a pile of money with you.
It wasn't quite that easy, but
would you have gone in the same direction if you had that money from some other route? If it just had been there, for whatever.
So
if doing the same things you're doing now.
Yeah. So if Mr. Kiplinger had handed me the pile of money, would I have done the same thing?
I mean,
probably not. And not because I would have been working on the new product development and working on the new audience strategies, but sort of the buying the expertise versus versus building the expertise, that was the real light switch for me. So I probably would have continued to try to build expertise and try to let me work through this martech stack with, these couple IT guys that we have and a really smart, developer guy. I wouldn't have gone out and said, here's all these martech experts and you guys just, make it rain, right? So I think that was the switch, John. It's not the new product development stuff, the audience stuff, all of that is, I agree. But the buying expertise for these big, important transitional, transition projects like pricing and like martech, I probably wouldn't have, because it just wasn't my mindset at the time.
Yeah. I mean, you might have added staff to do that to help you, but not gone out and bought in.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Have you changed? And I see Kevin chimed in with a question. This is sort of related to that, but have you evolved your product mix? And the question both on the digital v print, but also just, where you, Bruce mentioned it, the financial literacy question that you talked about earlier, like, are you adding to your educational proponents? So can you just talk a little bit about revenue shift?
Yeah, so we are looking at, so we haven't done we've been doing a lot of all of this other work sort of leading up to the new product development work that we're working on now. Yep. Some of it is very much financial literacy, and not for just young people, but for retirees as well, right? So we have a bit of a retirement crisis in this country, as we all know. So making sure that people can retire on time, don't outlive their savings. the retire early craze that had been going on, the FIRE people, who were all these people who had saved all this money and they decided they were going to retire at 50. There's a huge percentage of them that have to come back and start working again because they didn't figure it out right, or things changed or whatever. So there's a real opportunity, I think, for Kiplinger to help people retire properly and make sure they have enough money to retire and get retirement education younger. It doesn't, you don't start thinking about if you started thinking about retirement at 50 or 55, you're probably in big trouble, right? So how do we get that conversation down to younger people to understand what you have to do so that you can properly retire? You can't just count on a windfall or someone dying in your family to like be your retirement plan, right? So certainly not in my family. No one's going to do that. So
my family too. They forgot
right,
that part.
right, exactly. I don't know where we missed on that one. So there is so that's a big push on financial literacy. Financial literacy in schools is hard. The whole curriculum world is really difficult, and it's complicated to do. It's expensive. It's, schools don't have money. They don't want to help. So we are working on sort of, we're working with Brandon Copeland, who's a NFL player out of Atlanta. He used to play for the Jets. Now he's down in Atlanta. He's he also teaches a financial literacy class at Penn. And so he's actually doing a lot of social media for us to talk about people of color and financial literacy. And so we are doing, podcasts with him. We're doing videos with him. That's sort of, we're doing a lot of custom projects with him. We had a Super Bowl, a pre Super Bowl, the Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday. Brandon and two of his team. Oh, he was a Patriot, not the Jets. Two of his New England Patriot teammates.
I could see some people grimacing.
Yes, I know. I was like, that's wrong. Yeah, he was a Patriot.
Yeah.
Two of his New England Patriot teammates did a video for one of our did a live broadcast for one of our advertising clients, where they brought their high net worth clients onto this call and listened to Brandon and his teammates, the McCourty twins, talk about, their financial world and talk about being a dad and talk about saving money. And then they also had fun stuff. We talked about, they talked about winning the Super Bowl and all that, because it was prior to Super Bowl Sunday. So we are doing financial literacy and trying to, gain bigger markets through those sorts of methods. Curriculums and all that is really hard. It's just really hard. But we are going to be making some more tools available on the website too, so that people can learn more about it. And we're hoping that Brandon, and other influencers will help drive people to see those tools.
It sounds like the effort to change the revenue mix and to expand there, it's another case where you spent a little more on somebody who already had a bit of a brand in precisely the market you wanted to get into. Right. So that's an important investment that maybe, at BVR, maybe I try to build
you find an influencer in your market.
Yeah, since Lucretia's on the call, it's like, I think Lucretia, the two of us, we're enough, right?
Always.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that even that model is worth noting, and I know that's a model that's a little more current in the investment marketplace, where you've got these, supposed stars. Most of whom are at super spreader events right now. So we gotta be careful. But
Kevin has one on here. I just want to let's talk about print. Two of your offers are online, include print. Yeah, we are still a print business. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, most other than our advertising revenue on Kiplinger.com, really benefited from the stimulus and all of that, and it's a very profitable, great website for us. But we still do have a lot of print subscribers on our titles. One other thing we do use direct mail still, and we do a lot of digital marketing, and they drive print subscriptions. So you don't have to always have a digital offering to sell digitally. We do keywords, we do Facebook ads, we do email promotions, but fundamentally they are primarily driving print subscriptions.
Well, Denise, I'd say too, it also gives you a sense of legitimacy, right? There's so much crap out there and there's less noise. There's no more smart money. There's no more money. There's no more, whether it's Bloomberg, but it's a different publication. So you guys are kind of in a great space now, because you have less noise in the marketplace. You have a trusted brand. I just think it's really, really interesting. And I put in here, for me, life events.
Yeah.
And so much bad information out there that coming from Kiplinger could be really, really big. I know that I'm doing the paying for college thing right now, and I would really love some more clues how to actually do that. So
yeah. And we did, we've done 529 events where, like an online event where we help people sort of understand what a 529 plan is and why it's important. And, so the sort of life event thing is something we've always been really good at, how to buy a house, how to, and we're learning a lot about people who are in that sandwich generation. They're helping their kids still, who probably should be launched but aren't quite, and especially with COVID, maybe came back, and their parents need their help as well, right? And so that sandwich generation thing is really hard too. And meanwhile, they're in their mid-career and they're, so we certainly try to bring some sense for everybody around that. Like, what do you have to do first? Let's
just don't do a lot on TikTok and we'll be good. So
actually, what's funny is one of our younger folks, we're actually telling them, look, if you want to put something out on TikTok that is Kiplinger related type content, let's make sure we have some structure around what that is, but go for it. Right. I don't want to take my 22-year-old interns and say, no, you can't do something that you think is, interesting or important to you. But if you're going to use our brand when you do it, just make sure the editorial director sees it first before we're not going to do the make it rain Bitcoin thing, so let's just be a little careful about that.
That's funny.
Because that's interesting, because I think one of the other themes that comes out of what you're saying, but also discussions about new product development is, like nothing succeeds unless you commit very specific resources and responsibilities for it, and particularly now in this complicated period. So, but I still think there's a huge part around the social media, which is, take advantage of what you got. Let your junior marketers go a little bit.
Let them go a little bit. You don't want them to go off script too much, but you want to let them try something if they want to try it.
Yeah. And Bruce, I see, Bruce, you've made a couple comments throughout this about different sub-markets that are developing as the economy changes post COVID. I think it's worth noting that you've talked about life events, and earlier you talked about, the newly divorced women market as an example. But even in smaller professional markets, I think you can. Well,
we have a lot of good advice for gig people, right? So the taxes, if you're a gig economy person, we have 3 tax attorneys on staff. And if you are a gig economy person, your taxes are complicated, right? It's not so easy to be, and if you own MLPs and all these limited partnership, all these income investing things, your taxes can be really complicated. So we have, and and our audience is wealthier and they tend to have rental properties and all sorts of things. So being able to look at how people make their money and being able to sort of, this is how they make their money, this is how we can help them make more money, and then we can help them with their complicated tax situations they're in, is sort of so we like to span sort of people's personal finance, life in that way. Yep.
Maybe we can, since we're just past, the time, I repeat that with Renewed, obviously all of us are connected there. So let's continue the discussion, including the link that Ed set up top. So maybe, Ed, do you want to just close out with your last question?
No, I want to close out with Wayne's question. It's a much better question.
Okay. Okay. That's a point of order deferral to Wayne. Okay.
I like this question, Wayne. So the week is owned by Dennis Publishing, and they're our sister They're our sister company up in New York.
Yeah.
And they have a really amazing editorial staff that must read every bit of news that comes out of the world, and they collate it, make sense of it, and put it into a really fabulous format that's quite digestible, but you always learn something, because you can't possibly keep up with all the news outlets that they do. So we happen to love it. So any editorial insights from Dennis about people's appetite for short pieces and or different formats, good, bad, and what have you adapted? So what's interesting, I would say the big thing that we got out of it was, boy, when during the election, it was a volatile situation for the folks of the week, right? They really just got hammered with people from, sort of all sides. So they made sure their hate mail, the stack of hate mail, was very even, right? You're bashing Trump or you're bashing Biden, and how dare you? They made sure that was sort of balanced. But yeah, they do. They have, they're really smart people. They actually talk about a fabulous launch right in COVID. They took that same style and launched the Week Junior. And so it was in the UK already, but they created a children's magazine called the Week Junior here in the US. And, are making sense of the world for kids who are in that tween age, 12, 14, 10 to 14 kind of age. And big success with the Week Junior. We have, I think we're up to 75,000 paid subscribers, and it's expensive. It's well over $100 for 52 issues. So it's a really, talk about a great product launch. And there's been, a bunch of conversations around that, but it's, just sort of, we have birds of a feather when it comes to our editorial folks. They are very much like Kiplinger style editors. So our editors and their editors talk to each other. Actually, if you're a subscriber to the Week, Wayne, you're going to get a Kiplinger insert in one of them coming up, where Kiplinger is doing a sort of a financial, the future of, what does this pandemic mean to your finances, is going to be coming out in the Week as a special section. So we're doing some cooperative efforts across the two.
Good. And has it changed how any of your editorial model, any best practices from them that you're?
A little, I would say we're probably a little more willing to do opinion than we used to be. So it used to be sort of, this is the facts, we've assimilated the facts, we are now pushing advice. We are more likely now, I would say, because of the folks of the week, willing to say, this is the opinion of this person. Doesn't mean we agree with it or disagree with it, but here is this other opinion about. So we have a section on our kip.com called the Wealth Creation Channel, and we allow financial planners to put their advice with their name on it, not Kiplinger advice. And I would say we've probably loosened that up a little bit. So we have advisors talking about marijuana stocks and Bitcoin and things that previously we probably would have been like, but seeing what the week has done and carefully labeling it as someone else's, it's not sponsored content. It is just good. We believe curated, it to be good side. Good content that's curated.
Well, that's a private equity trend and a COVID trend, all in one thing, right?
That's right.
The move towards user generated content a little bit as both a marketing strategy and a product strategy, as an editorial strategy. That's interesting too. I feel like I've had discussions with other people who are still on the call where there's some of those new voices in, and certainly at BVR, it's, we're like our best customers, we want them all to be our authors, like that we know we've got them forever. There's something really, really strong there. So at the far opposite end of the nichiest of the niche, it's also true.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't quite get to all the questions in the time, and we're significantly over at this point. So maybe can I just bring it back to say, any conversation with you, Denise, is always a joy and full of wisdom and fun. Which is a nice combination. There's my goal for all of us for 2021. Try to hit all those things.
Try to hit fun. Yeah.
And ignore the other things as much as you can. So So again, we'll put this recording up. So if anyone wants to join in, let them know. It'll be available pretty soon. Renewed continues to do a bunch of stuff. We have a new product development thing that's in July. We've got the conference September 14th to 16th, I think, that everybody's been working on. And
hey, David, people can register for that now, by the way. So
yes, you can register for it. You can sign up now, and the Guild channel continues to be super active. So lots of places to connect as we get through all this together. So thanks everyone for being here. Denise, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Denise.
Yeah.
Let's
Feel free
see
to
you
reach
all
out
soon.
if anybody has a question they didn't get to. So, yep.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Great to see y'all.